Welcome along, everybody, to the wonderful but rainy Silverstone circuit in Northamptonshire, UK. And, well, it wouldn't be a British Grand Prix without a lot of rain. If you've been keeping up to date with the tennis this afternoon, you'll know it's been a similar story over there. And to be honest with you, looking out of my window, I think it's the same story throughout most of the UK, but it's a fantastic 5.891 kilometre circuit. It is the home of GPVWC for the next 2 weeks, as well as being the home of the British Grand Prix this weekend. I'm Tom Dillon, and alongside me is Jan Granqvist. And Jan, this is the first time these drivers have had to have a proper run out in the rain. We had rain in the Nürburgring, but this is a new level of condition.
Oh yeah, for sure. I've been waiting for this, to be honest. It's already been, we're pretty much now on past the midway point of the season, and this is the first time we get to see true rain in FS2. So for sure, it's going to be a neat little challenge finally for our drivers on the grid, and I'm excited to see just how everyone will fare.
Absolutely, and we're just about to tick over to the qualifying session. In fact, the green flag is going to fly in about 8 seconds time, and well, we can see already one of the Red Van Racing cars doing a bit of a slide out of the pit lane and will get himself onto the circuit immediately. That is Jorn Dix. A few other drivers have made their way out of the pit lane. Quite unusual us being on early enough to be able to commentate over the outlaps, but you come over to a race in Silverstone that's got a little bit of rain. It's a track that doesn't necessarily lend itself to being easy in the wet, does it?
Oh, definitely not. I was already, again, doing my regular laps now in the FS2 car, testing a little bit before the race itself, and yeah, these cars, as I think we've been saying throughout the season, are quite tricky, especially entry into corners, and Silverstone with a lot of corners, especially the section that carries over to Luffields. You need to trail brake into those corners, but these cars really do not like trail braking, at least heavily. So you need to be very delicate as you reach the entries, and just make sure that you keep your nose in a straight line before you start applying the throttle.
And, well, we can see Michael Tuomala making his way through Maggotts and Beckett, and you can see still the rain falls. This is at a level as our real road carries on throughout the sessions that we've got, the official sessions. Obviously the practice server is up, but then we have official sessions of practice, qualifying, and the race. The real road will carry over throughout all of those, as I understand it, which means that this rain, if it is continuing to fall, is in for the day. And well, Tuomala is sliding around and struggling a little bit. Needs to be careful of standing water as well. I'd suspect to see him mostly off of the curbs for the duration of this session, because curbs are honestly like ice on a slippy day.
Oh yeah, they're super treacherous. You don't really want to be taking much of that entry curve, as you see Tuomala doing. He doesn't take the apex through the curve either, so very much again trying to pick out the safer lines through the wet. And I mean, as of now, there won't be much of a dry line forming or anything, or a drier line, but I think you can just about pick it up on the stream camera. You can just about see a slightly more matte color on the racing line there, so he wants to be following that in order to get the fastest lap time around the track.
And no use of the karting line just yet, which is slightly interesting, as we're seeing a few people in the chat saying good luck to various people. It is purple on the track. Purple lap time on the board there for Michael Tuomala. It is not a purple lap time. That has actually gone to Oliver, I should say, Taras in the GPVWC Academy car in the number 101. He's got a 32.9. That is almost a second faster than Michael Tuomala, who we are having a look at now, who makes his way through Maggotts and Beckett. It's very, very tidy through there at the moment, even if he isn't particularly on the greatest pace. Jon Dix has gone across. No, in fact, it's Brodie Lawless who goes across the line with a 53.0 to make it a purple second sector. So Tuomala is still a little bit down on the ideal lap time here at this Silverstone circuit in this changing condition that, to be honest with you, could make for a very boring qualifying session if it gets worse throughout. And here he goes then through the final chicane to try and get himself a banker, a benchmark on the board. As 2:02 is the time to beat from Brodie Lawless. Tuomala is not going to smash it. He goes into 10th, but there's so many lap times flying in that I'm not too sure who actually is on top at the moment. I think it's Tom Parker.
Oh yeah, as of right now, obviously, all you want to do is set that banker lap and then be straight on it for your second lap. I don't think any of these drivers will want to pit just yet, seeing as the track is probably getting better if this rain condition stays as is. And
we'll be waiting to see if indeed the track does get better. But to be honest with you, with the way the rain is coming down, I can only really see it getting worse. Obviously, there's an element in R Factor 2 where it goes very wet conditions, that is it, and then it cannot get any slower, which obviously isn't the case in real life. But anyway, it looks like maybe we've got a case where the tyres are doing more work than the rain is, and we can say that much. George Whitehouse has gone purple in Sector 1, by the way, as Van der Smissen is coming around to finish his second lap, I think, of the day. No, he hasn't set a lap just yet, so this is his first lap. Heads through the 10, 11, 12 chicanes. So he doesn't need 16, 17, I should say. And then 18, and he spins almost all the way through turn 18, crosses the line. Won't be the fastest from Justin Van der Smissen, and instead he goes into 15th.
Yeah, just to go back to your point about the rain, I think looking at the session itself, it shows up as 20% rain, which in R Factor 2 terms means moderate rain, I'd say. So I think at this point it's very much 50-50 whether the tyres are doing more work or the rain is doing more work. So it's I think these lap times might stay quite consistent.
Yes, 20% referring to, as Roy Seifert goes purple, by the way, 2 minutes 0.9, so he's 0.3 of a second faster than Lewis Dykes for the Alfa Sierra crew. And actually, Lewis Dykes is here. That, by my reckoning, means that Luke Mitchell isn't here. And I do remember Luke Mitchell mentioning something about this, actually, saying that he's on holiday. So our championship leader not at the racetrack, and that is perhaps an opportunity for the rest of our guys to catch up the 105-point gap that they have got to Luke Mitchell. And Roy Seifert right now going along that route very nicely indeed. Here is the understudy then for Luke Mitchell, and he's doing himself a few favours here, sitting in second position.
Oh, absolutely. But look at that gap between Roy Seifert and the rest of the grid. It's 0.3 as of right now. Of course, things might likely change as the session keeps going on, but for now, that is a very good lap to have. Meanwhile, Lewis Dykes seems to be improving on his own lap, still 1/10 down in the first sector, but green for himself. So we'll see where that will land him as he comes through Maggots and Beckett's, through Chapel. The sector line should be coming up right about now. There we go. He's 700ths down, so it looks like it's definitely going to be an improvement, but will it be enough to beat Roy Seifert? At the moment, it looks like it might not be, unless he can make something extraordinary in the final sector.
Which you wouldn't put it past him. There's a lot of time to be gained in the wets, and through the chicane he goes now. Turn 17, then apply the throttle. Always a little bit later than you expect, as you're already turning into turn 18, and here goes Lewis Dykes. Can he get himself onto pole position? By the looks of things, it is no. He is yellow in the final sector, 2:01.2, so it doesn't even, by my reckoning, improve on his lap time. Magnus Ockenhaug looks like he's going to improve on his lap time, crossing the line, 2:01.5. He jumps up into 7th.
Yeah, good lap from Magnus Ockenhaug to put himself in 7th place. Currently 6/10 off pole, but also only 3/10 behind Lewis Dykes, who sits in P2, so plenty to improve upon for him.
Florian Nasser crosses the line, and it will be a 2:02.7, so that is a decent lap time for him, up into 20th position, and it is remarkably close, as someone has alluded to in chat, I should say, for a racetrack that is wet and getting worse, we would suspect. Although actually the lap times do look to be picking up a little bit, so maybe this isn't quite as the downpour that we had anticipated. Lewis Dykes is back on for yet another lap to see if he can make something of it, and the reason we're not seeing the karting line here, Jan, I think, is because there looks to be a dry line forming.
There is a slightly drier line, as I mentioned at the start of the session. However, in terms of R-Factor 2, karting lines are not simulated as far as my knowledge goes, so I don't think we'll be seeing them at all, even in future tracks, unfortunately.
Absolutely, and well, as we look at Lewis Dykes going through Cobb's Corner, Stoke Corner now, been a while since I've been at Silverstone, I forget the corner names, but he's yellow in the second sector, and starting to think maybe that it's time for him to jump into the pit lane and get some new tyres on, because right now he's not particularly improving.
Yeah, by the looks of things, no, but yeah, I don't know. These rain tyres are interesting because you only have one set of rain tyres. You don't have the step from inters to wet in FS2, so I have a feeling that those wet tyres could potentially keep their performance for much longer than we anticipate. So, which is why a lot of these drivers are opting to stay out for as long as they possibly can. But of course, there's the other question of how much fuel load you're taking, and as your fuel runs down, you'll also be able to run faster laps.
And Oliver Taras, he's making his way around Sector 1 right now. 6 tenths per second off of the pace for him, and he's really struggling to keep that car in check, actually. and we'll see if he's able to improve on his lap time despite the obvious signs of just a little bit of discomfort in the car. He's running very, very close to the white line as well, which is not the greatest of things to do on a wet day, and there's twitches all the way through the corners as well. 3 minutes to go in the session, and he's yellow in sector 1.
You know, this is always a good sign from a GPV Academy driver, being inside, as he goes for a spin. But as I was going to say, still a good sign from him. A GPV Academy driver up into P6 at the moment in qualifying. That is always a great sign to see a GPV Academy driver up in the top 10. It means a new driver could potentially be challenging for some of the higher spots in FS2.
Brody Lawless has been with the Academy team for a few weeks now as he's off at Copse Corner. The poor guy hasn't been able to find a permanent seat yet, which is really frustrating for him, I imagine. But he's enjoying his time, I would suspect. He's put in some decent performances so far. Obviously, he had that incredible lap, didn't he, a couple of rounds ago, where he found himself rocketing up the order, and it was really quite something from him. Here he is then, looking to go up into Stowe Corner, yellow in sector 2, and I think, looking at the body language of that car, that he's backed out of the lap.
Yeah, I think it's quite likely, but is he going to set up for another one, or is he going into the pits? It looks like he's going to set up for one more try. I mean, I think he might even have 2 more attempts left in him, looking at the timer. It will be close, however. But here he goes, setting up for the final corner, twitching just slightly. But yeah, just trying to get the best run you can, of course, as he start a new lap. And in terms of rain, it looks like the rain has stayed just about the same through the whole session. It could be that we might see a few more improvements coming in late here. We see Scott Mitchell-Mom in P2, so he's definitely improved. He's only 1/10 off of Roy Seifert. Same with Lewis Dykes, only 2/10 now, and George Whitehouse in P4 currently under that 3/10 mark.
Purple for Roy Seifert in the first sector. Whether he'll get another lap in after this is yet to be seen, but here he is, absolutely flying right now with this race car around Silverstone, and clearly the track is getting a little bit better for him, because that is an almighty improvement in sector 1. 1.8 tenths. Here he is. He's running the steering wheel separate from the dash, which is always an interesting preference for the drivers. Use of the curb on the left-hand side, which shows how good this racetrack is, but it's not works for him. He's gone off of the racetrack, and whether it will be invalid or not, I'm not too sure, because R-Factor 2's track limit points are
by the BC, it would definitely be invalidated, so even if he does improve this lap, so it would not count. But yeah. I
wonder whether the game would give it him, but judging by he's gone over the sector 2 timing beam, and it... Oh, there you go. So it hasn't been invalidated by the game, actually.
Yeah, the game does not seem to invalidate the FS2 cars, even in dry, for most of the cars. So I think it's just the game thinks the car should be a lot quicker, which is why it's so lenient. So the DC will be really busy this weekend, trying to just see and catch some of the off tracks that these drivers might make.
And they said sim racing wasn't realistic. Here comes Roy Seifert. Then this lap will likely be validated by race control, and here he goes, crossing the line to make an improvement, a little bit of an arbitrary one, 2 minutes 7. It won't really make a difference. He's 2/10 ahead of Scott Mitchell. I'll make that 3/10 if actually we're rounding there up a 1,000th of a second. No one else on a major improvement. Magnus Ockenhaug has jumped up a little bit. He's Mateusz Piszczan up into 5th position.
Oh, nice little lap made by Mateusz Piszczan. Beneath the 5/10 mark so far, and looks like we still have the top 3 out on track, so anything could happen.
Well, I'm quite happy with that one. Noah Tuamela has backed out of his lap. He's had enough, and Scott Mitchell-Mom is also out of the qualifying session, unless he's able to pull 2.3 seconds in 2 sectors. What can Lewis Dykes do, Jan?
It looks like he's also down in the first sector by even up to 2/10, so it doesn't look like it's necessarily contending for pole, but as we see him come through Magnussen Beckett again, we'll be able to see the sector timing for the middle sector, whether he can still improve on his lap time. He still has Scott Mitchell-Mom in his sights, so it'll be interesting to see, but it looks like he's just a bit too slow on this lap. It looks like it could be that the rain has picked up just a tiny bit, or just the fact that less drivers are now out on track and forming that drier line necessary to go faster.
It's a private qualifying session, so even though it doesn't look like there are a lot of drivers out on the circuit, sometimes that can be deceiving. You are obviously right in this case, though, that there are quite a few people in the pits at this stage. It's just a note for the viewers. In comes Lewis Dykes to round out his qualifying, and he's going to jump up. Oh,
what is
take
that?
pole.
Final sector is incredible. 4/10 purple.
And he should.
Look at that.
He should take pole position with that.
Oh yeah,
Roy's lap
absolutely.
should be.
Yeah, remember Roy's excursion through Cops, but will likely not get. It'll likely be a post-race penalty by the way the DC works in GPV. So, Lewis Dykes, P2, but very likely a true pole position.
And he can take the moral pole position anyway. That was a fantastic lap. I'm just looking at the race director notes then here. Yes, you're right. The in-game detection will not be used for this round. Manual system outlining the regulations. Black and white curbing is the track limits. You need to have 2 wheels on that curb at any time. And it can be reported by anyone taking the session. But okay, there you go. The track limits points has been put on just in case there's any confusion. But Jan, we've got the results.
Wait for the graphics to pop up. Here we have Roy Seifert taking a pole position as of right now, with Lewis Dykes setting that amazing final sector to at least take the front row, with Scott Mitchell-Mom lining up behind them, with George Whitehouse, Mateusz Pischan, Tom Parker, Oliver Taras, Bobby Bakinoff, Jörn Dix, and Magnus Aukenhaug in P10, sorry. And as the graphics, again, I think Noah Tuomala would really be in P11, but I'll just go through the names with Mikael Tuomala, Patrick Magnusson, Seva Panasenko, Dan Hutt, Massimiliano Riboli, Brody Lawless, Tom Ely, Justin van der Smissen, and Lucas Thulin. P20. And we've got Florian Haase, Sven Smith, Maxime Bellew, Dan Hayek, Dominic Schlabon, Scott Morris, Mihailovic Antievich, Alex Hallows, and Brandon Roberts.
And that is it then for the qualifying session. We will be back in just about 10 minutes' time for our first 13-lap race around Silverstone. See you then. Welcome back, everybody, to the most British picture that you will see in GPVWC Silverstone, and it is hammering it down. And it looks like the rain has got marginally worse over the course of the warm-up session, which is about to tick over into our race session. I am Tom Dillon. Alongside me once again is Jan Granqvist. Jan, let's look at the racing now, because we are within the last 8 rounds of the season. I have to say, it's been a very entertaining first 9 rounds, and and we get into the last 8 rounds with a lot still to play for.
Yeah, definitely. It's yeah. To be fair, the first half of the season has just blown past way quicker than I would have expected. So here we are already in the middle of the season, and yeah, there's been plenty of entertaining races to commentate over, and I've been enjoying watching them so far. And yeah, for sure. I mean, we don't have Luke Mitchell for this round, so we're even getting a bit of a opportunity here for the others to catch up just that little bit to spice things up in the championship. So I think it's all to play for still. Half of the season to go.
For what it's worth, by the way, in the championship, 105 points. If it wasn't for the fact that around it's 25 for the win, plus I think 22 for the second race win. The numbers are slightly 20 apparently, so that's 45 points per round you can pick up. We're getting into Luke Mitchell championship territory. We really are. Not now, but in a couple of rounds.
But yeah, I mean, I like to be optimistic here. Hopefully we'll see that not happen as early, but I mean, we'll have to wait and see as we now see the grid order for this race, with Roy Seifert taking pole, Lewis Dykes in second, Scott Mitchell-Mom and George Whitehouse in the second row, Matthias Pischan in P5 with Tom Parker line up behind him, Oliver Taras P7 with Bobby Bakinoff in P8. Björn Dix starting in P9 with Magnus Ockenhag alongside him, Noah Tuomela and Mikael Tuomala completing a all-finish row. Seva Panasenko in P13, Dan Hutt P14, Massimiliano Riboli starting in P15 with Tom Ely in 16th. P17 we have Justin van der Smissen with Lucas Tulin in P18, Florian Haase in P19 with Sven Smits starting in 20th. In 21st, Maxime Berlu with Patrick Magnusson in P22, Dan Hayek in P23 with Dominic Slapon 24th. Scott Morris lining up 25th with Mihailovic and Dievich in P26, Alex Hallows 27th with Brandon Robert in P28, and Brody Lawless completing our grid.
And you can see the rain coming down in buckets as well as they go through Maggots and Beckett's on this formation lap, and a chance for the drivers to first of all make sure that they've got the wet tyres on. We had an awkward situation in the past where drivers forget to, you know, that their setup is a dry setup, and then they forget as they go to the race session to reload into soft tyres, into wet tyres even, because their setup is naturally on slicks. But you know, this is a chance for the drivers to actually get a sight over the conditions, and it doesn't surprise me that maybe we've had a little bit of a faster formation lap than usual.
Oh yeah, I think the drivers are just waiting to get to the starting line now, and I mean, obviously, as more time passes, the more water gets to the starting grid, so it's going to be less grip the more we wait. So yeah, no wonder they're hurrying up to get to their grid slots as we see them go through the final chicane. They're about to have our grid lined up.
Oh, someone's taking their time.
Lawless. Yeah, he's really leaving quite a lot of cobwebs there. Yeah.
Almost to a point where he can be reported for that. Almost. I don't know if it quite can be, but anyway, he's at the disadvantage of already starting on a curve. So 28 cars, 29 cars taking to the start at Silverstone. First British Grand Prix of our 2-week stint in Silverstone for GPVWC about to get underway as we go to the lights. And it's lights out and away we go in Silverstone. It looks like it's a very good start for Roy Seifert, who cuts across to cover Lewis Dykes into turn 1. He doesn't have the greatest of starts in the world. Scott Mitchell-Marm gets around him as they go through turn 1. Is that Matthew's Pitchcan in the background has made up a position into 4th? I think it is. We've got yellow flags flying in the background as around the outside looks Lewis Dykes to try and get into a podium. Matthews is trying to attack him, and I think Matthews might just try and sneak one around the outside, but he needs to be careful because he's now under pressure from George Whitehouse as they go through onto the straight now, up into Luffield, Brooklands, and all of that section of racetrack. Louis Dykes finally tries to find the counter-attack. Here he goes on Scott Mitchell-Marm around the outside. Whitehouse down the inside of Matthews Pitchcan in the background. This is for 5th position. Matthews trying to defend it on the inside, and it looks like he has done exactly that. It's fantastic stuff at the moment, Jonas. There goes Lewis.
Look at that. It's Lewis Dykes in P2 now. As I think, have we lost you, Tom? I think.
No, I'm here.
Oh, okay. I got scared there for a second. I heard your voice cut off. But yeah, that's Lewis Dykes who manages to take back P2 from Scott Mitchell-Marm. Look at that, Matthews Pitchcan getting pushed off in cups by is that George Whitehouse? Yeah, and Matthews Pitchcan manages to keep the P4 for now, but it's looking like a lot of very aggressive racing, even in these conditions, from the top. I'm struggling to see the picture right now.
Yes, I think the stream has crashed on our end. Oh, dear me. So we can carry on. Let's press on. Let's pretend you didn't see anything. Shadow having a few moments. George Whitehouse back down the inside of Matthews Pitchcan. They need to be careful. This could end very ugly indeed. Matthews just holding on to it at the moment, and there's no real concern there. He stays in P4. Productive first lap for him. Everyone else is making their way around the final couple of corners. Patrick Magnussen's just made up a position on Florian Haase, and well, you can see the spray that is being created here. Visibility has got to be a problem.
Oh yeah, it's not fun standing. Hold on a second. That's Lewis Dykes? Lewis Dykes has suffered a disconnection or some sort. He is DNF'd from lap 2 in P2, and I believe he's out. He's fully out now. That is so unfortunate for someone who was so high up on their debut race.
Promotes Matthews into a podium position. There goes Tom Parker lunging very, very late, and Bobby Vakanov, but not quite able to find a way through. Bobby, an interesting character actually. He hasn't really been at the front for much of this season, but he's starting to string together a few decent finishes here, and this is one of those in 6th position at the moment, as this is actually its own little train. As you can see there, Whitehouse and Matthews are side by side once again as they go through cops. They make contact, Verstappen-Hamilton style, and Matthews is defending for his life here against George Whitehouse, who now goes to the outside through Magnussen Beckett's. He so desperately wants that position, looks at the switchback move, and they go through Beckett's and not quite able to find it. Pitchcan holds on at the moment in the widest FS2 car you'll ever see.
I can already start sensing the frustration on George Whitehouse's cockpit there. Knowing the man, he's definitely wanting to get past Mateusz as he goes to the inside for Stoke Horror. They bang wheels, and George Whitehouse for now is at the front, but Mateusz trying to get an exit towards the chicanes. Maybe he's 10-1 down the inside. Mateusz looks for the inside, but George Whitehouse manages to leave enough space. Neither of them tangle, fortunately for those two, after all that hard racing. But it looks as if George Whitehouse has now gotten that P3 solidified.
Yes, well, it was good fun while it lasted, giving our boys some camera time there, Matthews, and obviously defending very well. He's in 4th, and I think the only concern for him at the moment is Tom Parker just behind. We apologise, by the way, if there are still issues with our live stream. We're trying to get them solved. Vincent Gutt is working overtime behind the scenes to try and make sure that picture quality is restored to normal. But on lap 3 of this race, Roy Seifert is in the lead by 2 seconds from Scott Mitchell-Marmer. George Whitehouse, I'm afraid to say, is now trying to catch up to Scott Mitchell-Marmer, having dropped Mathieu Pishkan, who is losing a little bit of time to Tom Parker just behind him. This is Alex Hallows. Haven't seen him around here for quite a while. Here he looks for 21st position. He'll get 22nd and 23rd on stretch. Spins is just a bit ahead of him, and he spins.
It looked like he just went on the throttle too early there. Yeah, cost him quite a few positions there, and is now sitting in last place effectively.
Well, the difference between FS2 and Academy, for example, at least it used to be, and I'm not too sure if it is now. You are allowed to use traction control in Academy, and in fact, it used to be encouraged pretty much. It used to be faster, so you'd run low traction control, and that was that. But in FS2, you have to make the adjustment that you come back in, and you can't just mash the throttle as much. I mean, in Alex's defence, he's been in FS2 for quite a while now. He'll know, you know, that you can't do that. But it's so easy in the wet when you get to a dry condition in a car that doesn't particularly have an unstable rear end. It's quite difficult. It's a car off in the background, I think, there.
Not sure who that was, but to get back on the assists point, as we see side by side, that's Brody Lawless against one of the ST cars. It looks like it is Dominic Schlabon indeed, battling side by side there for P18. They approach the first corner. It is not flat in the rain as it would be in the dries. I think that's Brody Lawless just about sealing the position for himself. But yeah, to get back on the point of hold on, that's another car off. Can't quite tell who that was, but it's seems as if it was Maxime Beaulieu.
I didn't catch it myself, so I'm not too sure. It's just confirmation on the weather forecast that we've got rain throughout the course of the night now. There might be a little bit of a break in rain in 2 hours' time, but hopefully we'll be long done by then. Here is a replay of what happened. Brody Lawless was on a bit of a recovery drive, having started last, already up into 17th position, but has it gone all drastically wrong for him, or is he still plodding along? I wonder whether this is a replay. He's still in 17th, so I think this is, we've cut to the wrong pictures there, unfortunately, and can see that corner, Maggots and Beggarts. Look at how the rain is falling there.
I mean, with any car, any series, you're going to have trouble with visibility as well through Maggots and Beckett's. All the spray is going to be right in your eyes, and it's not a fun section, particularly to navigate in a rain race. It's that Mikael Duhamel who's hit the curb, bottomed out slightly, and nearly lost the car completely. He's lost a few positions there. As he goes side by side with one of the KKR cars, but manages to survive as he's dropping like a stone now behind Patrick Magnusson, it seems. Now taken P14 for himself. So yeah, but before I got cut off by all the action before, I was going to go back to the point of using assists in the series. I do believe there's quite a variety of assists that you're allowed to use. However, you have to pay with the weight penalty that comes with them. So technically, I think a lot of these drivers could be using traction control, but they'd also be significantly slower, or at least they'll have lost a lot of potential pace just due to the heavier car that they'll have to drive.
That's fair enough. I knew it was the case in Academy. I didn't know quite if it was the case in FS2. Here's Patrick Magnusson down the inside on Luca Thielen, because I swear we used to run no assist in FS2. I thought that was the rule over the career ladder, but I'd stand corrected. Here comes Patrick Magnusson trying to duck into the slipstream and perhaps attack down into Kopp's corner. A bit of a heavier braking zone than normal. Alex Hallows, Saber Panasenko and Lewis Dykes, your three did not finishes of the race. Patrick down the inside he goes. It's so tight through there. and neither driver really able to do much about it. I think another point to make about this is that the race is actually longer than normal. It's 13 laps. That works out to at about 26 minutes. I mean, with these cars in these conditions, the drivers are having to get used to the fact that their race is longer than normal.
Yes, almost. It's more than a quarter of the Super League race in terms of the race time. So yeah, for sure, these guys are having to race a lot longer of a race than what they normally would.
The 25% race distance of Super League, isn't that incredible? And Super League, by the way, for those unaware, is pretty much Formula 1 race distance. Penalty for Sven Schmitz. I'm not too sure what that is for. I would suspect that he's speeding in the pit lane, although in 20th position perhaps not. I don't think race director is able to give out penalties straight away, so obviously the game has given him something. Here he is, and going along in 20th position at the moment, and there's contact behind, and it's Justin van der Smissen who goes round another car getting involved, and someone's spinning into them.
Yeah, that was very unfortunate placement there. I don't think there was too much that could have been done. Yeah, that was an unfortunate place to spin in, and I believe some of these drivers would have collected at least a bit of damage there, so not ideal for their races either.
Well, we switched to Oliver Taras, who's having a fairly decent debut outing in 7th position at the moment, looking to attack Magnus Arkenhaug as we see a car. That's Tom Parker off on the right-hand side. Tom's going to find himself losing a position here if he's not careful. Magnus Arkenhaug has to slow up to try and stop collecting Tom, and that has allowed Oliver to really catch up. We might have a little bit of a three-way fight here. Here goes Oliver around the outside. He's going to be cut off. Is he? No, he gets the run down the inside as we go up into Stowe. He's not quite able to get the run. Actually has to tuck back into the slipstream. Can he send one down the inside? It looks like he can't. The lack of DRS really doesn't help these cars one bit, Jan.
Well, from what I could see, it looked like and Oliver Taras has now gone off, and he manages just about to avoid the wall there, but has to use the pit lane entry to find himself back on the track, and rejoins now in P11th. That was quite a way down from first eyeing out P6 from Magnus, and now having to fight for the top 10.
As we look at Oliver once again, who's fallen to 11th, and I think just a little bit frustrated with himself, because that was a fine drive until then. Now the good news is he's in reverse grid contention in 11th, so I'm sure he'll be pretty chuffed with a pole position if he can get one. 7 laps of 13 gone, still only about halfway through this race. It's has been a change of position, I should mention. George Whitehouse has got past Scott Mitchell-Marm while we've been having a look at all of our back markers. So not back markers, but our midfield, 5/10 of a second in it, and obviously Scott just not quite having the pace of the very fast George Whitehouse here. These two probably, I was going to say go formation flying, but then I remember they're not in the same team. They're just very similar liveried cars. It's the Kings Racing versus the
Priority 1.
Priority 1, there you go. That's the one. Got there in the end.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting. I hadn't been paying attention, but yeah, George Whitehouse currently has the fastest lap of the race as well in a 2:08. Roy Zeifer also on a 2:08, but 2:08.99. So, I mean, the top three are essentially flying. Looking at the caps as well, the top three have absolutely left the track against their rivals. But yeah, George Whitehouse now hunting down Roy Zeifer. The gap is about 3.5 seconds, and I mean, there's still a chance, but time is running out.
A bit of a jab at his teammate Jack Nichols in the chat, who says it was Simon Frelick says George Whitehouse is just the goat, and Jack says yeah, but Scott's also not that good. A little bit harsh, I think.
Oh but, no.
Teammates taking jabs at each other. And we see Oliver now trying to make his way up past Noah Tuamela on this occasion. Noah picked up his first race win, didn't he, last week in Canada? Yes, he did, round race 1. It was a fantastic event for him. Not quite able to reach those heights here, though, in 10th position at the moment. And to be fair to Noah, that day just works so well for him, and he had to get a little bit of luck as well. So I think he'll be encouraged by just keeping in the points. That being said, he might find himself under a little bit of pressure here, having made a mistake as they go up into Brooklands.
Oh,
In fact, it's Oliver who makes a mistake.
I think Oliver just wasn't ready with how early Noah had to brake over there, so Oliver had to go jump on the brakes, and you don't want to be trail braking too much there, otherwise the car just snaps, as he saw on the cameras then. But Oliver Tara's loses just about a second or two, but he still kept his position, and I'm sure he's still eyeing out a top 10 finish here.
I'm sure he will be eyeing out a top 10 finish. That's for sure. As we wait to see. By the way, Dykes has made his way back into the server, so he's not on the track yet. He's still in the pits, but he's made his way back onto the server after that disappointing incident for him, where he disconnected from the game. Pretty much a formation flying at the moment, though, at the front of the field. Roy Seifert still leading by 4.1 seconds now from George Whitehouse. Post-race penalties pending. He did with 5 laps to go in the race. He did in qualifying extend. Part of me thinks, well, actually, you know, you should be letting that go rather than just continuing to finish your lap. But I suppose the other argument there is we'll wait for the steward's decision. Jan, I don't know if you know what the nature of that penalty could be.
I'm not too experienced either with the DC decisions, to be honest, but it could be a sorry, come again? It could be a plus 10 grid position penalty for the next race, according to our race director here, Vincent. And yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, right now, Roy Seifert wouldn't be losing all too much by getting a time penalty. I mean, he'd lose the win, but really, he's probably not going to be dropping much more than 3rd position.
Yes, absolutely, and I think a 10 place grid penalty is probably fairest, but apparently, though, George is 0.6 faster than Roy on the last lap, so this could get tasty towards the end, and indeed he is. 2.4 seconds now after it was 4 seconds just a moment ago. Here is Tom Parker. He's caught up to Mateusz Pichkan, who was running very nicely in 4th position. All I can think here is, my word, I hope Mateusz doesn't fight this too hard, because 5th position is still a pretty solid result for us, and we'll wait and see. Here's Tom Parker then, finally finding a little bit of pace in his race car. Is it enough pace to pass Mateusz Pichkan, who is one of the better defensive drivers in the league, I would say. Tom, that being said, is going to look to the outside of Stowe, and not quite able to find the speed there. It's another good defence, and I have to say that is the one quality of Mateusz Pichkan that has really impressed me this season. He is a fantastic, aggressive defensive driver.
Oh yeah, he's definitely one of the more aggressive drivers in this league, and for sure, he's shown some great glimpses of talent here and there, and right now we're getting to see him defending a P4 finish, which would be a very nice finish on his resume as well in FS2. Tom Parker, obviously, as well, strong driver, currently shown in the rain. And, I mean, this could go either way. Mateusz Pichkan knows how to defend, but those little squibbles that happen as he goes on the throttle might just cost him. Tom Parker getting very close, but doesn't quite send one, or does he? He's going very, he doesn't quite know which way he's supposed to go there. He was really thinking about it, but backed out at the last second. But this is looking to be a very close fight for P4.
on board with Tom Parker in his quest for 4th position. Matthews again is knowing where to put his car, but he's left the inside open as they go into Copse. Is it going to be a brave move for Tom Parker? Is Matthews going to hold on to it? And I think it is the latter, not quite able to find the inside there. Now he switches to the outside for Magnus and Beckett. Here he goes. It'll be the inside for the second part of the corner. Matthews again holds on to the position. I've never seen a man who is at least a second slower than the car that he's battling hold on so well.
You know, it's a bit of a, I'd say an illusion, because Mateusz is very clearly running higher wings than Tom Parker here, and you can see it very clearly on the straight. I think Tom Parker might have the position, but no, Mateusz is still there to the inside, and there's a bit of contact, and Tom Parker or Mateusz won't be happy with that. But I think from the point of view that I got to see, I'm not going to say anything quite yet, but this is going to be an exciting finale for the final few laps of this race 1 in FS2. Magnus Aukenhag and Jörn Dix are now closing in on this fight, as well as these two are doing a bit of a ding-dong battle.
3 laps to go at Silverstone then, and Mateusz at the moment is holding on to P4 rather well, pending post-race penalties as the car's ahead as well. He might even find himself in a podium position if there is a penalty to Seifert. I don't think the penalty would be that harsh. I think that would be a very harsh penalty if that were to happen. But yeah, apparently according to Vincent, actually, Jan, it is a grid penalty for next round. They can't penalise with time, is what I'm getting there. So there's that to keep an eye on. Also keep an eye on the gap, which is 2.7 seconds. This is a battle between Jörn Dix and Magnus Aukenhag. So we're also having a look at this. This is for 6th position, and Jörn, who hasn't had the greatest of days, is maybe trying to save a little bit of face here.
Yeah, definitely. This is getting exciting. Anything could happen between 4th place all the way down to 7th. This is all of a sudden formed into a 4-way car battle, and Mateusz Piszczan still holding on to this 4th position. But as we see them approach Beckett's Chapel, Tom Parker will need to set this up perfectly again and get the exit that he needs in order to pass Mateusz once and for all through Stowe.
Here goes Tom Parker. Look at the straight line speed. He has got over the reading game card of Mateusz Piszczan. Now to the outside line he goes, and he's not quite able to do it once again. We're going to have 2 more laps as we get to the line. This is for 4th position. It's not even for an important position. There goes Tom Parker down the inside again. Mateusz just braking a little bit later and able to stay ahead. Lap 12 of 13. 2 laps to go, and this is really where the gloves off battling starts.
Now, it may not be for a podium, but P4 is still a heap of points to be scored. So, as Mateusz Piszczan takes off to the escape road, and wait, he's behind Tom Parker now. So he's given the position to Tom Parker after losing the car slightly there, going off track, and rightly so. Unfortunately for him, but that driver error has definitely cost him.
But is there a counter-attack for Mateusz Piszczan? He hasn't got a great deal of straight-line speed, as you mentioned, so that will be a concern. And now, in fact, he's under pressure from Magnus Aukenhag. It's a bit of a disappointment how that's ended going off of the racetrack, but at the end of the day, he would have taken 5th position. He qualified 5th, so definitely a good run for him. He's got Magnus to hold off, though, for now, and Magnus looks like he's even faster in a straight line than Tom was. What does Matthews do as they come into our view up to Copse Corner? Magnus is smart. He doesn't dive one down the inside and cause a bigger accident than there need be. 2 seconds at the lead, 2.2 seconds actually. It had fallen below 2 for a moment and back up to 2.2. So George Whitehouse is right now trying all he can to get himself within range of Roy Seifert as they go down into
there's a
the
car
final lap of the race.
It's
There is
Scott
a car
Mitchell-Mom.
There is a car off, and it is Scott Mitchell-Mom, and that makes this a battle for P4 once again.
Oh my goodness. That was unexpected. Nearly 1 lap to go. Scott Mitchell-Mom loses it I think, out of Chapel. Yeah, wow. All the way down in P7th after having, I mean, pretty much secured a P3 in no man's land. And, well, that's a huge driver error. But here we see Magnus Okkenog, Mateusz Piszczan, Tom Parker fighting for a podium on the final lap.
And I think Tom might just hold on to it because Mateusz not quite having the pace over him. This is a battle for 8th position. Noah Tuomela looking around the outside of Dan Hutt, and he's not quite able to find the space on that occasion. Slightly confusing that the car with the purple logo is the car that is not purple. So that threw me off for a moment, but it is the name, the car that bears Dan Hutt's name. So if that's any more sensible for you, around the outside goes Tuomela. Will he find the room through Brooklands? He swoops, sails quite literally in these conditions around the outside, and should get the move done as they go down into the Luffield complex. Can he get his nose just ahead? I think he can, but it's a little bit of a twitch on the exit. Shorter run as we go up into Copse Corner. They'll stay side by side for the time being, and if you can barely see them through the spray being kicked up, eventually there is no doing. Oh, Oliver!
Ooh.
Spins and is into the wall.
I think he just about avoids the wall.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's frustrating for him. It'd be nice to get a camera shot of Roy Seifert. I wonder where he is on the racetrack at the moment. Surely about to win the race. He is. Here he goes then through the chicane, and it is going to not quite be a grand slam for Roy Seifert as George Whitehouse got the fastest lap of the race, but really a sweep, a lights to flag victory for Roy Seifert. Fantastic stuff at Silverstone, clawing back a little bit of that insurmountable advantage that Luke Mitchell has got, all but insurmountable advantage, I should say, as we see these guys battling it out to the end. Looks like Mateusz has held on for his 4th position. This is a dive down the inside for Noah Tuomala, but he's not quite able to, Michael Tuomala, I should say, he's not quite able to find the space to do that. So that looks like that is all she wrote. Justin van der Smissen is getting a little bit racy, yeah, and Florian Hasse goes round.
I just P22, P23 outside of points positions, so it doesn't really matter all that much to them. But yeah, I mean, what a interesting race we've had. Race 1. So the final few cars are still yet to finish theirs, but yeah, I was shocked seeing Scott Mitchell-Malm all of a sudden drop to P7. I thought certainly he would have had this in the bag, but unfortunate driver error cost him this time, and Tom Parker now gets the podium.
He does, and a bitter disappointment for Roy Seifert, for Scott Mitchell-Malm, I should say. Oh, dearie me, that's not ideal for Florian Hasse, who's just trying to crawl over to the line. And well, as we will get you your race results with that. Trying not to throw over to you too early, yeah, but here they are.
So, results of race 1. Roy Seifert takes the win provisionally with George Whitehouse in P2, Tom Parker in P3. Mateusz Piszczan taking P4 with Magnus Okkenog all the way in P5. Jörn Dix for Redven in P6. Scott Mitchell-Malm 7th. Dan Hutt 8th. Noah Tuomela P9. And Patrekur Magnusson in 10th position. Oliver Taras comes up in P11 with Massimiliano Riboli in P12, Lucas Tulin in P13, Mikael Tuomala 14th, Tom Ely P15, Brody Laws 16th, Dan Hayek in P17, Scott Morris in 18th, Mihailo Vicentievich in 19th, Maxime Bellu in 20th. Bobby Vakinov in 21st, Justin van der Smissen in 22nd, Brandon Robert in 23rd, Florian Hauser in Prix 24th, and the rest count as DNFs, starting with Sven Smits, Dominic Schlabon, Alex Hallows, Sever Panasenko, and Lewis Dykes.
So fantastic stuff at the start, or the first of 2 races at Silverstone. We're going to be back in about 5 minutes' time for race 2. Welcome back to FS2, everybody. Second race of the British Grand Prix is ahead of us 13 more laps, and the news from race control is that reverse grid number is 15, putting Tom Ely onto pole position. It was a slightly longer warm-up than we expected whilst they sorted out the grid, but Tom Dillon alongside Jan Granqvist once again. Jan, it was entertaining in the first race, albeit maybe a little bit long with our wet running, giving us 2-minute lap times. But I'm sure we'll see some more entertaining lap times here.
Oh yeah, for sure. But let me tell you something. I've just noticed on the server itself, the rain itself has gone down to a bit of a drizzle. The rain intensity is no more as aggressive as it was in qualifying or in race 1. So we might see quite a prominent dry line forming even. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But as of right now, the rain is not as of the strong intensity as we had.
So maybe that's something. Jan, the grid.
Yep. So here we go. It's the graphics reset them. So we've got Tom Ely on reverse grid pole for race 2 with Mikael Tuomala lining up in P2, Lucas Thulin in P3 with Massimiliano Riboli in P4. Oliver Taras takes P5 with Patrick Magnusson in P6, Noah Tuomala in 7th, Dan Hutt in P8. Scott Mitchell-Malm in P9 with Jörn Dix running off the top 10, Magnus Aukenhog in P11, Matheus Pischan in P12, Tom Parker taking grid position 13, George Whitehouse in 14th, Roy Zeifer in P15, Brody Lawless in 16th, Dan Hayek in 17th, Scott Morris in 18th, Mihailo Vicentievich in P19, with Maxime Berlu in 20th. Bobby Vakinoff in 21st with Justin van der Smissen in 22nd. Brandon Robert 23rd with Florian Haase in 24th. Sven Smith starting in 25th with Seba Panasenko 26th. Lewis Dykes in P27 with Victor Cabello rounding off the grid.
There we go then. That is your grid and 28 cars. We've lost one. Someone's into the pits.
Yeah, seems like
for dries.
Victor Cabello is in the pits as of what I can see. Along with someone else. I think that's a Hutt performance car as well.
There's a bit of chat saying perhaps people are pitting for drives, but I don't see how they could.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, they appear as if they are on wet tires.
Each other, apparently.
Right.
So that makes sense. Thank you, Kai Kura in chat. That has solved that mystery. I thought it was way too early to pit for dries, if indeed we get that point in this race. Here we go, though. Grid is lined up, albeit with 2 cars not quite on the grid at Silverstone for race 2. 13 laps of racing ahead of us once again in the wet. And it's lights out and away we go for race 2 at Silverstone. It looks like it's been a very decent start from Tom Ely, who holds the lead down into turn 1, but for how long he doesn't, he's gone wide. And that promotes Mikael Tuomala into the lead of the race. Tom Ely actually loses a couple of positions down into turn 1. Now he's under further pressure from, I think, that is Patrick Magnusson. As he filters on through, there's a few people side by side further back, a few people almost getting sideways further back, as I see Scott Mitchell-Malm trying to battle with Massimiliano Riboli as we go down the straight up into Brooklands. The weaving is pretty extreme from Tuomala at this stage in the race. Seems to be otherwise a clean getaway.
Let me just tell you something. I've just seen an incredible start from Batrakur. He started from P6, took a few positions off the starting line, and just managed to navigate himself all the way into P3 in a matter of a few corners.
Massi Riboli here is finding himself under a little bit of pressure from 6th place behind, but he's holding on for the time being. That is Jorn Dix just behind him. Tom Parker is ahead of Mateusz Piszkan, though I think those two going side by side for a moment there. And in fact, I do see those two going side by side into into Maggots and Beckett's. It's exactly as it was in the previous race. Mateusz not quite able to get that spot on this occasion. As you can see side by side is George Whitehouse trying to attack Mateusz as well at this stage. Rafael Tuamala gains 1.2 seconds in the first lap, as there goes Whitehouse, there goes Thylin as well down the inside on Patrick Magnussen. This is for second position in the race. Is Patrick trying to come back? They make contact, and here round goes Thylin into the wall, and presumably out of the race.
That was Patrikur making the move on Lucas on the straight, and Patrikur definitely had the right to be in that corner. He was in front of Tulin as they approached, and I think it was just unfortunate bit of contact that happened between the two of them. Not any space was given to Patrikur, and the outcome is what we see now. Lucas getting the biggest bump straight into the wall.
For Taras, and he's not quite able to get ahead of Ely on that occasion. He knows he's under pressure of Scott Mitchell-Marm as well, but yeah, that was close for a moment, and I thought he might have just gone for the dive. Now he's under pressure from Scott Mitchell-Marm then, as we try and see in these impossible conditions down into Brooklands. Taras defends the inside. Mitchell-Marm is going to try and go the long way round, and the long way round, it looks like he is going to take the position from Tom Ely. Is going to find himself under pressure from Mitchell-Marm in a moment. I think Oliver Taras probably a little bit frustrated with how his weekend is turning out. Fantastic pace, just perhaps not the look. This is George Whitehouse, and it's Tom Parker that he is looking at. Around the outside he goes, and I can't see if he's got the position. Looks like he has.
So far I'm having a difficulty keeping up with all that's happening on track, but so far it seems like Mikael Tuomala has got himself a pretty good lead with over 1 second to Patrikur, who's behind him. Tom Ely still kept the podium position, but definitely dropped out from the start. Also thanks to Lucas, I think going into the wall, Tom has managed to keep that position for himself, but as we see side by side between a Hood Performance car, and there we see a GPV Academy car of Brody Lawless on Maxime Ballou, and that was Magnus Ockenhag on Mateusz Piszkan. Still side by side going into the chicane. What are we getting here? Potentially a bit of contact in the background. That's still hold on a second. That's Lewis Dykes all the way up into P15 from him starting pretty much last place, and he's already got himself into the points positions.
And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm having trouble picking through the spray who is who at the moment. We're definitely looking at Lewis Dykes in the Alfa Sierra car, I can say that much. And has he gone for the inside? He has gone for the inside, and Brody Lawless, and I think he's going to slide through. Oh, Mateusz is round. Mateusz is round. And that is frustrating after a very good performance in race one, but these two still side by side. Can Lewis Dykes find the inside? He's going to be squeezed all the way, but down the inside at Brooklands he goes to the apex of the corner. He gets first, but I think he's still just unable to pass Brody Lawless, who's getting the elbows out.
Brody Lawless is again showing just what he's made of. He's still fighting for these low positions, but he's definitely got the potential, the pace of someone higher up in the grid. But now we can see finally Lewis Dykes getting the move done, although Brody Lawless might get him back going into Maggots and Beckett's, but no, I think they're just keeping it clean with one neat line, hoping for more to happen later on in this race. Lewis Dykes definitely having the pace, but Brody Lawless manages to keep it. Lost a position there, but luckily for them, they're still pointing the right way.
Taras down the inside of Tom Ely. This is for fourth position. Can he get himself ahead? It's George Whitehouse, actually. I think, no, it is Tom Ely. George Whitehouse is just behind, so there you go. George Whitehouse already up into sixth position. That's incredible, but Oliver Taras gets himself around and into fourth position. So that unleashes our two Priority 1 cars to try and have a battle with each other. Can there be anything here for George Whitehouse, with a few people in chat are tipping to win this race overall, which I think would be quite impressive from this position. Here he is on board with George Whitehouse. Can he get to the inside line? His teammate shouldn't hold it that much, I think, and it will be pretty simple pass for him.
Absolutely. George has definitely been one of the standout drivers today. He's showing some incredible pace, and you know, he definitely has it in him. I feel like that 5-second gap into P1 might diminish by the end of this race.
Wouldn't surprise me. He's got to get past Taras first, and Taras is making his car relatively wide at this stage in the race, and has done throughout most of this race. We look back on the racetrack and we see two Redven racing cars not side by side, but right next to each other in terms of positions. Roy Seifert and Jorn Dix. I can see Massimiliano Roboli perhaps thinking about a move himself on one of the cars just ahead. As you can see in the spray, is Roboli actually under pressure from Seifert. Excuse me, your race one winner trying to get past the Alfa Sierra car, who in himself is battling with Constructors' Championship in mind, because Redven Racing well and truly breathing down their necks in that, and will be if they can do yet another better rounds than Alfa Sierra here in Silverstone once again. Lap 4 of the race. Is there going to be a move for Roy Seifert here? He's got plenty of straight line speed in the slipstream of Massimiliano Roboli, but I don't think he's going to be quite alongside into the braking zone. It would have to be late, it'd have to be brave. Can he go for a switchback? He can, and they make contact.
There's contact.
And it's a bump and pass.
Yeah, that looked very aggressive, and I mean, for sure, well, he could have left more space, but I think Roboli would, I mean, anyone in his position would not have expected the car attacking you from the outside all of a sudden being towards your inside. So that's a difficult one. We'll have to definitely check that one out again. But yeah, now we see Oliver Taras defending P10 from Lewis Dykes, who's made it all the way up into P11. So Lewis Dykes hunting for even more after he's sensed the scent of a points paying position. He's all the way up into P11 and he's looking for more.
And I would suspect that it'll be more that he finds in just a few moments' time. It's only 8 tenths of a second, by the way, between Patrick Magnussen and Michael Tuamala. That is at the lead of the race. So Tuamala may be just struggling a little bit. There goes Oliver Taras around the outside. He's not able to pull alongside the car that he's battling of Maxime Bilou. And I'm thinking about Patrick. I didn't do the first 2 rounds of the season, and since getting on the podium in Australia, he hasn't been back really in the upper echelons of the championship that much. Well, he got 3rd in Saudi Arabia, I apologise, but definitely not been fighting for a race win really any stage this season. Here is a replay. We'll have a look at what happened here. It's Tom Ely. I don't like the way this is going. It's the priority 1 car, and apparently it's not Tom Ely, so let's not worry about that. It's again, our replay camera has cut to the wrong bit, and well, we can ignore that for the time being. Yeah.
So here's Tom Ely, truly in P5, currently defending 5th place from the Red Vens, who are now up into P6 and P7. As it stands right now, the Red Vens are having a real good round this time around, and sure those two will be enjoying their time with the I mean, the double top 10 finish that is looming over their head. They can keep it all the way. We're soon towards the halfway point of this race.
Ely under pressure from Seifert. Seifert can't find a way through yet. Going to have to wait, so he's carrying so much more speed through the corners at this stage. Here's Tom Parker. Jorn Dix is the man just ahead of him. And you see Oliver Taras all the way around the outside of Maxime Bilou. Can he get that position? He can. Lewis Dykes has got through both of them. So that is also pretty impressive at this stage. Dykes is definitely on a bit of a recovery drive, and it's a fantastic recovery drive. Up 20 positions in the race so far, I believe. Michael Tuamala, 9 tenths of a second in it for the lead of the race. Roy Seifert now all over the back of Tom Ely as they go up into Cop's corner. He's got no visibility problems there because he's so close to the car ahead, but no spray can be kicked up. Here he goes, down at the inside and not quite able to properly commit to it. Down into Cop's corner, and perhaps the sensible option as well. Is he holding back a little bit here? He goes around the outside into Magnus and Beckett's. This would be a brave move. And again, just being sensible.
Yeah, I mean, they can't afford to risk too much with what's at risk here. And I mean, as soon as Roy Seifert gets past Tom Ely, he's got plenty of room to just put in those fastest laps. And let me tell you something. Fastest lap from race 1 was a 2:08. George Whitehouse has set the pace at a 2:03. So he's absolutely flying right now. He's catching Scott Mitchell, who himself isn't even doing bad pace. Scott Mitchell on a 2:05 fastest lap. Roy Seifert on a 2:04. So these drivers are the ones to look out for.
Oh dear. Oliver continues his topsy-turvy day and goes off of the racetrack, and not quite out of the points, but behind teammates Brody Lawless. So that is frustrating. There goes Roy Seifert, strong move down the inside, brakes very late indeed, and Tom Ely hasn't really got much answer to that.
Finally, Roy Seifert can catch a glimpse of that clean air, and he can finally put in some of those fastest laps that he'll definitely be trying to set for those extra points.
Off the track is Justin van der Smissen, getting on very awkwardly halfway through the race. Falls behind I should say, Mathieu Pishkan, and the two reading game cars actually running 17th and 19th at the moment. Justin is needing to be careful. Victor Cabello is very close to him. This is Scott Mitchell-Marm, and it's George Whitehouse who has caught up to him. This is a little bit of box office for you. George Whitehouse wanting that podium. He's on fire at the moment, and if he can get past Scott Mitchell-Marm, I wouldn't put it past him to go on and win the race, but he knows that time is ticking away. It's not going to be long before he has to be there attacking Patrick O'Malley. Certainly won't make it difficult, and then he's got to get past Michael Tuamala as well. But the gaps are all decreasing at the front of the field. Top four all gaining on each other, but George Whitehouse not alongside Mitchell-Marm just yet.
Yeah, George Whitehouse has got quite a job ahead of him, because the only way you're truly getting past someone is if the driver in front of you makes a mistake. There's no DRS to help you whatsoever. So you just have to really rely on the top speed of your setup and potentially setting up moves going into the main straight. It looked like for a second there George might have had the inside, but now he's fully on the slipstream of Scott Mitchell. Can he make a move into turn one? No, he backs out of it sensibly, but which forces Scott Mitchell to nearly go on the grass there. Now he goes sells a dummy nearly. George Whitehouse sends one down the inside, and it looks as if he's got P3 for himself.
And he's done it in fine fashion. George Whitehouse, who now is unleashed. 1.8 seconds to the leading pair, and that is an ultimatum that he'll send to them, I'm sure, because, well, perhaps putting himself as favourite for this race. 8 laps gone, 13 laps in this race. As in chat, Geiger says it's ridiculous that he's going to lose 1 point from P15 after causing damage on the formation lap. I'm not really sure what to make of that, but yes, we'll have to see that damage.
As it seems like there's definitely some groups forming now, so it's definitely a group of 4 at the top. As we see now, it's Jörn Dix defending from Lewis Dykes. Lewis Dykes is managing to get his way past the red vents, and I mean, well, Roy Seifert's actually all the way up in P5 right now, but Lewis Dykes makes his way up into P7, so he's already sort of halfway past the points paying positions, all the way from last position on the grid, pretty much.
And yes, it's fantastic, and you always think, you know, what could have been at this stage for Lewis Dykes, who basically got pole position, you know, with Roy Seifert finding himself extending the track. You know, it was the moral pole position anyway, although I'm not sure how much time Roy did actually gain from that extension, if any at all. Battle for the lead then, 0.8 of a second between Whitehouse and Magnussen and Tuo Marler, the three of them pretty inseparable at the moment, and I think in the last 5 laps of the race we're going to see some box office stuff.
Yeah, this is getting exciting now. Patrick, I feel like we'll be sensing the pressure from behind of George Whitehouse. So Patrick will know now is the time, if any, to try and get past Mikael Tuomala if he wants to keep that P2 at least, or even get the race win. He cannot afford to stay any longer behind Mikael Tuomala if he wants to do so.
And well, we'll wait and see what happens as Magnussen losing time in droves to Magnussen, to Whitehouse. I apologise. I just got a message, so I looked down to my phone to see that it's not a regular occurrence. But 5/10. I mean, Jan, which way do you see this going?
To be honest, George just has such scintillating pace this time around that I feel like he's going to be generating a ton of pressure to the top two right now. Who'll definitely be feeling it. So, I mean, if they play it right, Mikael Tuomala and Patrick could potentially defend with the pace they've got. But George, I mean, he's a skilled driver. He'll want it. He'll want the win that is right in front of his nose. It's like a carrot dangling right in front of his eyes, and he wants it. I can sense that George is probably going to win this one. But, I mean, I'm not going to say anything yet, but he's definitely got it in him.
And, well, Whitehouse needs to get a move on. Thinks about how to dive down the inside. You could sense it, but not quite able to find the space to make that move. And Tuo Marler is finding himself to be in a very difficult position at the moment. Can Whitehouse get to the inside, or is it still just going to be this awkward slipstream train? Here he goes down the inside of Patrick Magnussen, but not quite able to find the move on that occasion. He twitches as well as they go through Luffield and up into Copse Corner. Magnussen now thinking about a move on Tuo Marler. He needs to be smart. He needs to make sure he doesn't force it, because that's just going to play into the advantage of George Whitehouse. Tuo Marler moves to defend, and there is no doing.
Well, this top three is going to be super close as they go into Maggots and Beckett's. It's now going to be a question of who can set it up the best. Who can avoid mistake right now is the one who's going to win out for this lap onwards. And Patrick trying to set up for maybe a look on Mikael Tuomala. Looks like George doesn't quite have the same exit. So this is definitely a question of whether Patrick can now make the move on Mikael Tuomala. He's in the slipstream. Will he look for the move inside? Will he send it? He'll keep it behind for Stowe, but it looks like Mikael Tuomala has gone wide. There's slight contact and Patrick almost spins out into the walls then, but that gives George Whitehouse a free position, and now it's all about George Whitehouse versus Mikael Tuomala. Will George make it past him, or will Mikael show a defensive masterclass for the final 3 laps of this race?
3 laps, and one of the most attacking drivers, one of the fastest drivers on the grid, just behind you for your, well, a hard-earned race win in race 2. Here goes Whitehouse to the inside. He sends it down the inside and barges his way through on Mikael Tuomala, who goes off of the racetrack for the time being. There's contact again, and Magnussen goes through himself into second position, trying to hold it around the outside. Is George Whitehouse, who almost is round. He just holds on to the car.
Oh, he bottomed out on that exit curve, and I nearly thought he lost it completely then. He sent one down the inside. And he's to the, which turned to the outside with Mikael Tuomala now to the inside. George Whitehouse trying to set up a move now going into, it's Patrick Magnusson actually who's got the inside on George Whitehouse now, and he's got the slipstream of Mikael Tuomala. So Patrick has amazingly got himself back into P2.
Mitchell Marm under pressure from Seifert as they go through Kopp's corner as well, but we stay with this battle as George Whitehouse looks to get back to second position before he can even start to think about winning this race. Through Magnus and Beck as they go, and he's basically pushing Patrick Magnusson through this sequence of corners. We're disappointed with himself that he's tried to, chuck it down the inside there, and basically it's not worked for him, and I'm sure there's going to be a few tempers flaring after that one as well. Mikael Tuomala right now holding on to the lead of the race, and Whitehouse actually falling back a little bit. Seifert can't find a way through on Mitchell Marm at the moment, so it's now, by the looks of things, Magnusson's chance for victory.
Wow.
Seifert around.
Oh no. Yeah, that's Seifert around, and is that Stowe corner. But as we got up to the lead now, it's Patrick who are only 0.2 behind of Tuomala. Again in his slipstream. Will we see any moves done from Patrick? I don't know. George was definitely aggressive going into this corner, but it looks like Patrick has now backed off a little bit. But George just about makes contact with Patrick is now to the outside, which Patrick goes quite wide himself and perfectly blocks off George Whitehouse then from advancing. So must be very frustrating for George, but now he's to the inside, he's got the top speed, and he's now facing the inside, and which turns to the inside for him again as Patrick goes for the switchback, but doesn't turn into the ideal line for Patrick. So now George Whitehouse back into P2, but laps are running out. He's got one more lap after this to try and take the race victory from Mikael Tuomala.
Realistically, he's got to have caught up as Scott Mitchell Marm now trying to get himself involved in all of the formalities, and off of the racetrack he goes. So that's going to put him out of it for the time being after spinning out to a podium in race 1. Looking like he's not going to reach those heights in race 2 either, but we're seeing now George Whitehouse gaining a fair amount of time on Mikael Tuomala. Is it going to be enough? 0.8 of a second in between the two of them. Realistically, Jan, he needs to be alongside this time next lap.
Yeah, definitely. It's, I mean, he's caught up this much in only one section of the track. So, I mean, it all rests on the final lap. What will we see from George Whitehouse versus Mikael Tuomala?
And we'll see what he can do. George Whitehouse, 1 lap to go, and it's 0.4 of a second in between our two race leaders. George Whitehouse, who would have felt a little bit hard done by in race 1 and might just have a chance here in race 2, and I don't suspect he's going to hold any punches here as they go down.
I think he went
into
on the
turn
grass.
3. He did went on the grass. He did go on the grass. He went wide, and that might just be his chance for at least half a lap gone.
Yeah, he's going to have to set this up perfectly from the first sector into the second, and I believe as we go past Kopp's corner, that'll tell us just if he has a chance going into the back straight. But it won't be enough for the first sector for George Whitehouse to do anything yet, but he's closed up right behind Tuomala again as they go through Lufil's right-hander. Setting up for Kopp's. Will he have the slipstream and the top speed? I don't know. They both have scruffy exits. And it looks like for now, George Whitehouse will stay behind. He'll get some dirty air as well as we go through Kopp's. So what will it be? George is right on the gearbox of Mikael Tuomala as we approach now Maggots and Beckett's. This is his final chance to set up anything in the final lap of the race. George Whitehouse going through Maggots and Beckett's. He'll be getting a little bit of dirty air again, but it won't be too much in these rain conditions. But it looks like Mikael Tuomala just has enough of an exit speed to keep himself in front as we go through the straight. and approach Stowe corner. I think Mikael Tuomala might have this in the bag, unless George can send one down into the chicane.
Got one more chance, Jan. He's got one more chance, and I wouldn't be surprised if George Whitehouse went for it. Here they go into the chicane for the final time in the race. He looks for the dive. He's going to try it, and they make contact. And Mikael Tuomala just about holds on to it. George Whitehouse around the outside goes off of the racetrack as I can see a dive from Lewis Dykes for the podium on the final lap. Tuomala will cross the line and win in Silverstone, just about 1/10 of a second. Patrick Magnusson as Lewis Dykes spins round and gets himself down into 6th position. So it is a controversial end to proceedings here in Silverstone, and I'm not really sure what to make of that. Overly aggressive, perhaps, for George Whitehouse.
Yeah, I mean, what a spectacle, though. That was incredible to watch, and I mean, George Whitehouse certainly delivered with his driving. It was a tad aggressive, but we got to see some of the best of FS2 driving this season in these harsh conditions. And I mean, I don't think Tuomala will be too bothered about that, as he still takes the race win. But Patrakur also taking a podium, which he, for a second there, managed to get himself in front of George Whitehouse. And, I mean, was looking in for a very good result. And, I mean, he still finished in P3, which is a really good result for him. So, yeah, I'm just almost speechless after that race. I don't know even how to describe it.
First win of the season. And I would be shocked if there weren't some protests about that. I don't know where from. I don't know who would be protesting who, but definitely someone will try their hand at that. But otherwise, I think that just seemed like hard, perhaps a little bit overly fair stuff, but nothing you could penalise for. I think a case of both as bad as each other, maybe. Yeah.
Potentially, yeah. It's also the rain conditions, so, you know, I mean, you'll see the most of some silly-looking driving in these conditions, and in fairness to them, I think they've managed to navigate it just fine, and I mean, the rest is just left to the competitors, whether they can talk it out or whether, well, tensions will boil out and we'll see a report war. That's all down to the drivers here in GPV, so I mean, I think we've got a brilliant grid here, and hopefully we'll sort this one out. And I think it was just one of those days where you have a rain race and you're under heavy pressure. George Whitehouse, I mean, so close to a win, was just trying his all to get the race win. So I think it was just brilliant racing from my end anyway. As here we have the result of race 2. Mikael Tuomala taking the race win after a brilliant defense with George Whitehouse in P2, with Patrakur Magnusson in P3 rounding off the podium. Scott Mitchell-Mom in 4th, Tommy Lee in 5th, Lewis Dykes 6th, Jørgen Dix 7th, Tom Parker 8th, Magnus Ockenhaug in P9, Maxime Berlu rounding off the top 10. P11 we have Roy Seifert, Oliver Taras in 12th, Massimiliano Riboli in 13th, Dan Hutt in 14th, Noah Tuomala taking off the last points paying position in 15th, Dan Hayek in 16th, Scott Morris 17th with Victor Cabello in 18th, Sven Smits in 19th, and in 20th we have our first DNF of Florian Haase. And here we have the rest of the grid with Nados, Pischan, Mihailo Vicentievich, Brandon Robert, Brody Lawless, Justin van der Smissen, Bobby Vikinov, and Sev Panasenko and Lucas Tulin.
Well, we've got an interview. Only one at the moment, and it's Mikael Tuomala. You see next up Hungarian Grand Prix in 2 weeks' time, but of course, we have also got all of the other races at Silverstone ahead of us. Thursday and then Tuesday and a Thursday for FS1, Super League Lights and Super League. Mikael Tuomala, first time race winner in the season, joins us. Mikael, that battle seemed to be quite an aggressive one towards the end there. Do you think either yourself or George, I mean, I appreciate you're not going to say yourself stepped out of line, but do you think there's any cause for any protest there?
Thank you. That was not just the first win of the year, but of my whole career in GPVWC. It's been 10 years now, so feels great. The racing was tough, yes. I still have to watch the replays, but it felt that we were on equal levels in terms of the aggressiveness. So yeah, I have at least no complaints to George. So I hope to speak with him and check that everything is fine with him as well. But I think it was fine. You guys saw it, so you can you're the pros here. So please enlighten.
That's what I was saying as well. So I think both of you went uber aggressive at the end, but in the end it was all brilliant racing. So I hope you two can sort this one out as with a gentleman agreement, as GPV rules so require one person to protest in order for there to be an investigation. So there's no need for all of that if both the drivers are satisfied.
Well, Michael, thank you very much for joining us, and well done on the win.
Thank you, and just one shout out to Tommy Koivunen. He was on the pit wall tonight and giving very valuable help for. So kiitos, Tommy.
Congrats, and onneksi olkoon.
Kiitos.
Thank you very much. And the Finns look after each other. We're going to drag in next George Whitehouse. I think there's a fair few people actually wanting an interview. I think we'll get two more in, to be honest with you. George, fantastic drive there to get yourself back up into second, but just one position too many.
Yeah, well, it's good to be back. This will be my last race in GPV. I'm out of here after today. It's been about 5 years, but time to move on. But anyway, yes, tonight we had to step in for Craig. Craig wasn't there. He's obviously on the way to Silverstone at the moment. I hope he has a great time on the weekend. So, good luck to my man in his little car on the way there. Happy days. Yeah, he called me up. I think it was like January or something. I was like, yes, let me do it for you, mate, because I love Craig. He's a proper lad. You go in a club, you see Craig. Hallelujah. You know what I mean? But tonight was interesting because I didn't even know it was going to rain until someone put it in the FS2 chat. Oh, rain. I'm like, crap. What am I going to do now? You know what I mean? So I had to whip up Omagorgi, give me a few little setup tips on my dry setup. That THR, shout out to THR as well. Tom Ely more especially, creates an absolutely legendary setup. Happy to see him get some points, definitely. I'm sure Craig will be even more happy by that. Qualifying, I would take it. P4 could have done a little bit better here and there, but in the day, P4 was pretty solid. Race 1, I think I met the best Polish sim racer in the entire world, Matthias Piskan. What a legend!
I agree with that.
That battle, that was amazing. You have to say.
I feel like George has done the interview for himself here.
I don't have any questions.
Through all we need, yeah. But no, brilliant drive, George. Also, talk us through the last few battles with Mikael Tuomala there for the win in race 2. What did you think of that? Hello, George.
Ground control to George.
I am my mate, right? I am deeply sorry. I'm so sorry, guys. Yeah, look, race 1 was, towards the end of it, just getting the feel of the car, learning it more and more. It was great. I made some few moves, had to get the elbows out, definitely. Race 2, P14 to begin with. That was, come on. Unlucky is one word to describe it. But the plan was, Roy Safat had to stay ahead of him. He obviously had the pace in race 1, had to stay ahead of him at the start. We did that, carved the way through the field. And we were looking like 4 or 5 laps to go towards the end. We were trying to get the win. Obviously for Craig, it would have been great. Obviously, it's my last race as well. It would have been nice to get the win, but what can you do? We tried it. We tried everything that we can. But yeah, Mikhail, what a driver. We did everything we could, And once again, we failed. But, that is that. I'm happy. We move on. We move as one. Of course, TOP, can't do it without them. They are absolutely amazing. A little bit of controversy here and there. But happy days.
Thank you for joining us, George.
Thank you, George.
Speak to you soon.
No worries. Take care, guys. You guys in the commentary box as well. Another shout out. Amazing stuff. Tip top. Happy days. See you later, lads.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, George. Quite a character, George Whitehouse. But anyway, I think we'll grab one more interview because we are almost out of time, approaching 9:30. So I think most people want to go watch that back. Thank you, Patrick, for joining us. Another podium. I mean, you're creating quite a run of form.
Yeah, it was good. There is. Don't know what to say.
Well, what was it about the rain today, and obviously all of the successes you've had over the last few weeks? Was it the rain today you think that helped you, or?
It did not help me at all. But it was very challenging. The race, like I'm just like a swimming pool now, and I need to go take a quick shower after this. But yeah, it was very challenging. The car was hard to drive in the rain, but the racing in race 2 was very hard and competitive, and I liked it a lot with Mikael Tumala and Whitehouse. Yes, I remember the name.
Well, I'll ask Jan if you got a question for Patrick.
Not really, just big congrats. That was a brilliant race we saw by the end of race 2, and yeah, I suppose with the virtual rain as well kicking in, the wouldn't help the swimming pool of sweat that's occurred.
Yeah, but I had to also do like a little recovery drive in race 1 because I started 10 places how did it backwards because I had a penalty, so I started like P22 or P23, and then we got into a good
I
position
see.
for race 2, and yeah.
Yeah, that was a brilliant drive then. Well
Yeah,
done, man.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us, Patrick, and we'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, thank you. Bye bye.
And that is all we've got time for here from FS2. So, Jan, thank you very much for joining me. Vincent, thank you very much for being on the production. Make sure you join us on Thursday for Formula Sprint 1, then on Tuesday for Super League Lights, and then on Thursday again for Super League, the main British Grand Prix. We'd like to thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all later. Good night.